I've developed a strong impression that Hearthstone is currently going through one of the most uncertain periods in its history. The game feels stuck somewhere between the modern explosive gameplay and an attempt to return to its roots. The developers have declared war on power creep and turnaround effects, actively combating toxic gameplay, dialing down the madness, and trying to restore Hearthstone's original philosophy, at least partially. The results are already promising, and if this shift continues, the game might undergo a colossal transformation. But there's a downside. The standard format has entered a feverish state, manifesting in unprecedented turbulence. All of this has a direct impact on the game's economy, primarily affecting the utility of cards, dust, and packs. Unintentionally, players with limited resources have found themselves in a very vulnerable position, and the overall cost of playing continues to rise day by day.
Time to rock and roll!
Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician and this is Holomancer.
Also, Chief Investigative Reporter Dora joined us this evening.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
The way you gather dust and gold, plus the strategy behind choosing the best packs to purchase, and the best cards to craft, are essential parts of Hearthstone. In most cases, the cost of the game will directly depend on how you choose to spend your resources.
But it's not all up to you. Your personal preferences will determine the cost based on the current meta. Do you play just one deck? Is it important for you to have access to a wide range of the most effective strategies, or do you prefer fun and experimentation without worrying about win rates? Each of these paths leads to very different costs and gameplay possibilities. Our primary goal has always been to help you collect as many useful cards as possible and extract maximum value from your purchases. But now we're facing a unique situation in which crafting new cards or buying any packs at all might be entirely irrational.
The beginning of the new standard year has been absolutely wild, and the madness continues. In our previous video, we shared our impressions of the Into the Emerald Dream release. In our opinion, it was one of the weakest launches, due to a huge gap between expectations and the reality, which was heavily distorted by a toxic play environment. Through the lens of evolving archetypes like Demon Hunter and other meta leaders, we discussed differences in design philosophy and the challenges of blending new approaches with Hearthstone's classic principles. Just as we were finishing that video, the developers unexpectedly released a list of cards targeted for balance changes.
We had no idea that every deck we discussed would be nerfed, even those that had only a limited impact on the metagame. The team is clearly taking serious action to address toxic gameplay, including issues introduced by the new expansion.
Of course, the balance patch didn't fix everything. Essentially, the toxic decks were replaced by ones featuring explosive combos. But still, things did get significantly better. The nerfs completely knocked all the meta leaders out of their top spots and pushed them to the sidelines, opening up much more room for experimentation. The game became extremely diverse. Every class gained at least one reasonably effective build capable of climbing to legend. Overall, the patch was a major step that showed the developers are committed to transforming the gameplay. But it's not all smooth sailing. Standard still feels like it's running a fever. Right after the nerfs, several new frontrunners emerged almost instantly, decks that came with questionable design choices. Toxic Zarimi Priest, with its early tempo and powerful finisher, the Revolting Tree Paladin with its insane combo, and the ever-persistent Suck Death Knight, still running on a weakened turnaround mechanic. These three archetypes alone made up 40% of the Legend Climb metagame. One particularly annoying development was the rise of Neil Warlock, who could even defeat infinite demon decks built with Kol'Jaeden, a true pinnacle of madness and irrationality. This deck punishes any slow archetype that doesn't have a strong finisher. Personally, it felt like a disaster to me. But you know what? At some point, this newly formed meta nearly self-destructed, without any developer intervention, which brought new favorites to the surface.
This unexpected meta reset brought me back into the game, and for the first time in a while, I felt the joy of experimentation, something that was almost entirely lost during the expansion's release. Our subscribers seem to feel the same way. Overall satisfaction has significantly increased compared to the post-release period. The balance patch exceeded all expectations. However, your personal satisfaction with the current meta will directly depend on how you prefer to experience Hearthstone. For fans of new approaches, this is one of the best periods, marked by an incredible variety of playstyles and the absence of any overwhelmingly dominant strategies. If you lean more toward the classic Hearthstone philosophy, then the game has moved in that direction, but perhaps not far enough. The gameplay of nearly every deck is centered around explosive synergies or combos capable of generating massive value. But activating these often depends on drawing a goldfish hand at different stages of the game. While it's not guaranteed in every match, the odds increase significantly against certain opponents. Additionally, almost every archetype has clearly defined weaknesses that can be exploited by specific counters. Essentially, the rock-paper-scissors component remains intact. Its influence is still strong, and in some sense, it maintains a form of balance.
But there's a downside. The meta is extremely volatile. Just when it starts to settle, it collapses again. What's strong today might be irrelevant tomorrow. Archetypes burst into the spotlight out of nowhere and vanish just as quickly. Decks that seemed unplayable suddenly become effective, and the next implosion is impossible to predict.
Players with large card collections can enjoy all the fun and advantages of this chaos. But for those with limited resources and smaller collections, the situation becomes a major challenge. What makes it worse is that we don't really understand what the developers envisioned for the game. Do they intend to stick with modern design principles and simply aim to fine-tune them? Or are they planning a true shift toward classic design philosophy? Will they continue aggressively nerfing explosive interactions, or settle for more minor tweaks moving forward?
This is the key question, because it will determine not just the meta landscape, but also the cost of competitive play and your long-term planning strategy. If another massive balance patch is coming, the meta could be completely reshaped again, and any dust invested into useful cards might go up in smoke. On the other hand, if the developers are content with the current situation, we might see only targeted changes that won't reset the meta entirely, but instead cause a partial shake-up. In that case, it might become possible to identify safe cards to craft.
To give you a better understanding of how the transformation of standard and the chaos in the meta affect the cost of the game for vulnerable players, we ran some calculations. After the initial post-release meta stabilized, the dust cost to craft only the essential cards for climbing to legend was around 55,000.
After the nerfs, this number rose to 65,000 dust, but it wasn't just an expansion of the meta. It was a reset, where some previously useful cards became irrelevant and new ones became mandatory. Players with broad collections likely didn't feel any major constraints, but the same can't be said for those lacking key cards. And that's not the end of it. Just days after we made those calculations, the legend ranked meta shifted again, cutting some cards while introducing others, and this trend is ongoing.
Frequent meta reshuffling is a standard feature of modern Hearthstone, but the current changes feel more like a tsunami. I honestly can't remember a time with this much chaos at the top of the ladder, where favorites appear and disappear so rapidly. Under these conditions, for players with limited resources, investing dust into crafting specific cards is extremely risky.
In my personal opinion, the current situation is made worse by the absence of a meta-defining set in Standard, something that traditionally serves as the foundation for deck building. Usually, it's the newest set or the previous expansion that plays this role, but we now find ourselves in a scenario where the new cards are used in large quantities, yet their overall effectiveness isn't especially high.
Apart from Imbued Druid, the current meta environment lacks truly effective archetypes that are primarily built around the newest cards. The previous standout was the Heroes of Warcraft mini-set, which was heavily nerfed through a series of balance patches. Before that, we had the Great Dark Beyond expansion, which turned out to be a complete disappointment. As a result, we're facing a unique situation. There is no clearly optimal set to invest in. Almost all sets are equally useful, and at the same time, equally useless. On top of that, their usefulness keeps shifting. We've been observing packs for many years, and this is the first time we've seen a scenario where the efficiency in ladder can skyrocket to absurd levels for certain players. This isn't some malicious strategy from Blizzard. It's just that the team has never implemented such sweeping changes to the gameplay before.
Given all of the above, if you're looking for ways to expand your in-game resources and collection, we unfortunately don't have any strong recommendations for optimal purchases or crafting paths, because none currently exist. But we can warn you about potential mistakes. The first thing you should keep in mind is the upcoming mini-set, which will be released unusually early, either at the end of this month or the beginning of the next. For this reason, you should already start saving up gold if you don't plan to buy it with real money. Based on the current state of things, this mini-set could once again completely reshape the meta, even if things stabilize before its release.
Let's talk specifically about packs. If you're in urgent need of cards and dust for competitive play, you should know that all packs currently offer roughly the same value.
The usefulness of Whizbang's workshop packs increased significantly after the recent nerfs. Their benefit factor sits at around 300 conditional dust per 100 gold, at least until you complete your collection of commons from that set. The value and impact of cards from Perils in Paradise also increased after the balance changes. For a brief moment following the patch, this set became the best to buy. However, just a few days ago, its position weakened again, and Into the Emerald Dream took the lead. The newest expansion contains the most influential cards in the meta overall. However, its cards are slightly less efficient at legend rank when compared to other sets. You'll get fewer cards suited for high win rate decks but more that are ideal for experimentation in today's meta. Still, you should keep in mind that the advantages of this set may not be long-lasting. Traditionally, the influence of the year's first expansion tends to fade after the second one is released. Overall, all three sets, Whizbang's Workshop, Perils in Paradise, and Into the Emerald Dream, offer about the same practical value in the current meta. The differences lie mostly in the details. The only set that is clearly worse than the others is the Great Dark Beyond. That expansion had the potential to serve as the foundation for a control-oriented component in competitive play. And it partially fulfilled that role after rotation. However, today's mid-range decks with powerful finishers, along with aggressive strategies, have pushed those control ideas out to the fringes of the meta. After the balance patch, the set's impact dropped significantly and continues to decline. Its benefit factor is now just over 200 conditional dust per 100 gold.
Guys, let me briefly remind our viewers what the benefit factor actually is. The benefit factor estimates the hypothetical total value, in conditional dust, you might gain from your next card pack. It's based on drop rates and the utility stats of cards by rarity. With this data, we can calculate a player's chances of pulling a useful card. The benefit factor includes the dust value you'd get from disenchanting useless cards, golden cards, or extra copies, plus the crafting value of useful high win rate cards that you have a chance to open. At a minimum, every pack is worth about 40 dust if it contains only low impact cards. On average, after opening a large number of packs, you'll net about 110 dust per pack. But if a pack contains only useful, competitive cards, its benefit factor can shoot up to 430 conditional dust. This means that a perfect pack may be up to 4 times more valuable than one full of unplayable cards.
A similar trend can be seen among mini sets. There's currently no mini expansion we can confidently recommend as a good purchase value-wise, but we can say for sure, do not invest in Boom's incredible inventions.
This mini set includes only a handful of viable low rarity cards, and none of its legendary cards are effective for high-rank competitive play. That means every 100 gold you spend will return only about 160 conditional dust. Surprisingly, Heroes of StarCraft and Traveling Travel Agency are now almost equal in value. Both sets contain just 2 legendary cards that still hold a positive win rate at legend rank. Heroes of StarCraft suffered multiple blows, starting a week before rotation, but regained some value shortly after the new expansion launched. However, the second balance patch once again halved the number of viable cards at high levels of play, and their influence dropped accordingly. That said, we've recently seen signs of a slow recovery. Traveling Travel Agency includes fewer useful cards overall, but the set is cheaper. Meanwhile, Heroes of StarCraft still contains more playable cards, though it's more expensive. In both cases, you're looking at a return of roughly 300 conditional dust per 100 gold, though this number is once again starting to fluctuate.
Despite the similar value, for new or returning players, I would personally recommend Heroes of StarCraft. What makes this set special is its self-sufficiency and strong, closed-loop synergies. You'll find many more use cases for these cards. While they may not bring you the highest win rate at the top ranks, they'll significantly expand your options for a much lower cost. Each faction can give you up to half the pieces needed to build a potential deck. From the perspective of increasing your gameplay possibilities, Heroes of StarCraft is the best option to purchase if you're just starting out or returning after a break. Guys, what about the newest packs? What should active players do to get the most value right now? Is it still worth buying more into the Emerald Dream packs?
That really depends on your situation, but I can share my own experience. As a free-to-play player, I bought the fewest packs from this expansion. Blizzard has been unusually generous with packs lately, and throughout this current phase I plan to finish collecting the remaining epic cards I need. Most of the legendary cards are highly niche, and I've already crafted the safest ones. Personally, I chose to save most of my free resources for the upcoming mini-set and the next expansion.
This current phase will be shorter than usual, and that's important to keep in mind. If you're a free-to-play player with limited resources, we recommend stopping pack purchases once you've collected all the rare cards. At least until the meta chaos settles down. The same goes for your dust. If your supply is low, we strongly advise against crafting new cards right now.
Play with what you already own, experiment, and stop worrying about wins for a while. Save your dust, because it's incredibly easy to lose it permanently in the current state of things.
The biggest question now is, what are the developers planning next? Personally, I hope Hearthstone completes its transformation and reduces the influence of explosive combo synergies.
The current state of the game is noticeably healthier, but to me, it feels like we're very close to the classic, traditional form of Hearthstone, and I'd really like to see the developers take one more big step in that direction. Dear viewers, what do you think? Should the developers continue moving toward a more traditional game design, or do you believe the improvements we've seen in modern Hearthstone are already enough?
Let us know your thoughts below and join the polls in your community tab. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to support our content and stay updated.
Traditionally, we want to express our boundless gratitude to our sponsors.
Dear friends, your help is invaluable. We will be grateful for any support.
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for spending this time with us. We really hope that we will have the opportunity to get in touch in the next video.
Take care of yourself.
And never give up.
Job's done.